Well, good morning. Oh, that is so good to have that life and energy. And don't you wish you were young again? Oh, man. So good. You know, you guys got a little taste right there of what happens week after week after week of kids praising God. Isn't that so beautiful? That's so special to be a part of. We're taking today to focus in on family and to celebrate what God is doing, what He's going to do. And as a family pastor here at Pathway, I'm just thrilled that we have this opportunity to focus in on what God wants in our own homes. And we're going to continue on with a message series that we started last week called Walk the Line. Walk the Line. And the Urban Dictionary has this definition, okay? I'm not sure if this is working. Look at this guy. Nate's all over it. Just does it all. To maintain a fragile balance between one extreme and another. That's what it means to walk the line, right? And we've got this line on the stage here. Maybe you can see that, where you'd have to be pretty good in order to stay on this line if you're walking a long distance. Yeah, well done. Oh. Give it up. So we're trying to walk the line in life and balance different extremes. So one example from our life, this past summer we had the chance to go to BC on a family vacation. And some of you, when you vacation, it's like just beach chair and relaxation. Like that's your deal, right? That's the idea you have of vacation. Okay, so we did that. We enjoyed different parts of it. There's no beach chairs, but we were on the beach a little bit. And then there's other people when you go on vacation that it's like, give me adventure, give me excitement. I want new experiences. I want to see it all. Give me the itinerary. Let's go. Right? How many of you, beach chair? Yes. Okay. How many, backcountry canoe trip? Yes. Okay. Wow. A beautiful family vacation is probably going to involve a little bit of both. But for our family, one of our core values is curiosity. So when we went out to BC, it's like, let's jam in the hikes. Let's see it all. Let's take a helicopter ride. That didn't happen. But there's a thing called Fly Over Canada that's kind of like it. That was fun. So we're just trying to, in family vacations, balance those things. Maybe let's talk about health and diet. There's the people, you get a perfect summer night. It's like, I need an ice cream cone. That would hit the spot just right. There's some people, I could use an ice cream cone every single night, right? Yeah, okay. Then we got the the sugarless killjoys over here. That's like the black bean brownies. Like, no. We're trying to walk the line, right? And that's also true of our relationship with God. And this is what Pastor Nathan kind of spoke on last week, and we're going to continue on this Sunday, where there's actually tension-filled pairs in the Bible, okay? There's God's, His justice, his the truth of who He is, and He's righteous, and He's holy, and He's good, and He's full of mercy and grace and compassion. And those two, we need to hold in tension and walk the line as we understand who God is. Then there's God being sovereign. He understands what's going to happen even in the future. He knows what's going to happen, and He's in control of the world. But it's also true that as humans, we have a choice. We have the opportunity to choose how we're going to speak, the thoughts that we're going to think, how we're going to live. Right? Those two we're going to hold in tension and walk the line as we go through life. And this morning, we're going to focus in on what it looks like to walk the line in our families, where we are going to acknowledge two different things, both God's part and our part. Okay? So we're going to explore that, what it looks like in the family, and to do that, we're going to turn to Psalm 127, which is the text we used last week, and we're going to continue on and pull some more things out of that. So if you want to flip there or turn in your app over to Psalm 127, and we're going to read that together. So it starts like this. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. okay? Unless the Lord, we'll continue on, unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. So that's kind of the groundwork that we're going to start with this morning. And so what does that mean? Okay, I think a lot of us, probably all of us, would like a thriving family. Okay, whether we're parents, whether we're grandparents, whether we're someday hope to be parents, whether we're friends of people that live next door and hope they have a thriving family and don't mess up your life, you know what I mean? We all kind of hope for a thriving family. And this morning, I want to share kind of 4 different ideas for what makes a thriving home, okay? And we're going to walk through what God's part is and then what our part is. So with that text, unless the Lord builds the house, you want a thriving family? Okay. What do you think is the number one contributor to a thriving home? What do you think it is? Is it your socioeconomic status? Okay. Like income, family, household income. Is that it? No. Is it the connections that you have in a community? Well, that might feel a little bit more right, but no, that's not even it. Is it the quality of education? Is it all the different things around you that are circumstances that kind of act on you? No. Okay? Those are good things. But at the heart of what makes the thriving home is God being at the center. Okay? God being at the center. Unless the Lord builds the house, what it's saying is there's acknowledging right from the outset, if you want a thriving home, thriving family, thriving city, it starts with God being at the center. And, when I think about kind of the families that we have and this message, if there's anything I hope to communicate in this service to you, it's that God must be at the center of your family in order for things to go well with you. There may be times and seasons where things go all right, even though it's kind of like a distant memory in your life. There's the grace that God gives us even when we don't walk in obedience to Him. But that's what it is. It's grace and mercy for us. But if you want a thriving home, it starts with being intentional about the way that you love God, how you serve Him. In your home, are you having conversations about Him? What you're sharing, kind of the things that you're learning about Him and passing Him on. And we're going to talk, we have a dedication towards the end of the service where we're going to talk more about what Deuteronomy says about this, because God lays out something really clear for how to make Christ the center of our homes. So then he continues on with this. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for He gives to His beloved sleep. Okay, so some of us are those rise up early people, stay up late, get things done. Bedtime is midnight because there's just that much that has to happen. We're eating the bread of anxious toil. By the time we get home, after just a hard day's work, we're just worn out. We're anxious. We're kind of, just on edge. What God is saying through these verses is that when He is at the center, there's a peace that kind of fills through life. And He gives to His beloved sleep. This description here, does that sound a little bit like parenting? Right? Rising up early, going to bed late, doing whatever it takes, facing the anxieties of what's going on in my kid's life, their friendships, their schooling, decisions for their future, all that. That feels like parenting. But when God's at the center, we experience peace in a whole nother way. So, the first point, okay? God is at the center. But let's continue on, okay? So, behold, this is verse 3. It says, behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Now, what's a heritage? Okay, so that's an inheritance that's given to you, that's not something that you worked for, that's just passed on to you. So let's take an example. Say you inherited, what would be fun? Like a cottage on Stony Lake. Can you imagine if that was your inheritance? Okay, that'd be pretty fun. If you were the one who inherited that, what would you do with that? Just let kind of like the weeds grow up, just kind of let nature take its course? I doubt it. You'd probably be like, manicured lawn. You'd have your dock set. You got the chairs out there. You guys, some of you have been to cottages. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you would have it done up to the nines because it matters to you, right? So it was something that was given to you. You didn't work for it, but you have it and you value it. It matters to you. You're going to take care of it. Well, what this verse is saying is that children are the inheritance to us, okay? This children are a gift to us. And so there's kind of like a stewardship principle there. It's not that we just kind of receive it and then do whatever we want with it. Like, the kids that God puts into our homes, whether we're the parents or guardians or single parent, whatever that looks like, they are God's children that we're taking care of with love and care and intentionality. So we're gonna value the place that we have. And so kind of the second point, what makes a thriving home? It's this, okay? Owning our responsibility as parents and guardians to lead our kids towards Jesus. That's not something that just kind of happens on its own. You know, as the family pastor, I think about what your homes look like. I think about how does faith actually grow? Because at the heart of who we want to be as a church in ministry to kids and teens, we want them to have a faith of their own. So how does that happen, okay? How does that happen? Well, it doesn't happen through a lot of the ways that you might develop your kids' other skills. Like, say you want them to be a better skater. You sign up for skating lessons, you drop them off, and you pay someone else to kind of have to do chiropractic work after the end so that you don't have to hunch over and, teach them how to skate. Been there, done that. My girls love gymnastics. I'm not going to teach them how to do a flip on a tumble track, but I can pass that off to someone. Faith is not one of those things that you can pass off as an extracurricular thing. You can bring your kid to a program, whether it's church or Friday night youth. Those are really, really meaningful things. But at the end of the day, what God says is parents have the responsibility in spiritual leadership of their homes. So that's number 2. Okay, number 3. What is it that makes a thriving home? It says this: like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior. We don't have many arrows in hands of warriors, but something so valuable and precious. Okay, like what's a warrior without a weapon? Okay, this is like critical. And I'm not sure that when we think about kids in our society today, we think of them as arrows in the hand of a warrior. So here's the question for you. Are kids an asset, something valuable, something that brings added value to your life, or are they a liability? Okay? Are they an asset or a liability when you think about kids? Money Sense published a 2015 study that the average cost to raise a child until the age of 18, anyone want to guess how much it costs to raise a kid up to 18? $350,000. That's actually a really good guess. In 2015, it's $253,000. So by now, 2022, it's $1.6 million with inflation. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I think it's just under $300,000. That's what it costs to raise a child from 0 to 18. And when Sonia and I were newly married, and we had our daughter at 22. We're in North York at university, and we're surrounded by, luxury cars of every kind. We're rocking our 96 Corolla, right? And we go into a grocery store in kind of that neighborhood, and we're holding our little one, and people are looking like, what are you even doing? Like, why do you have a kid already? What happened? And then, fast forward 5 years later, we're 27 with 3 kids. And people look at us, and they might say, wow, say you're going through a grocery store, like, well, you got your hands full, right? Maybe you've heard that as a parent, which is why you do click and collect so people don't stare at you and all that. You got your hands full, and it's true. We do have our hands full. But that's a beautiful thing, to have our hands filled with precious, precious lives. And kids are not a liability. Yeah, sometimes there's a lot of inconvenience that comes with kids, but there is value and strength in every single child. And so what makes a thriving home? It's when we value each child. Okay? And as a church, we're going to value each and every child. We're going to be intentional about how we lead them. We'll make sure that it's a vibrant, special place for every single kid to have the opportunity to experience a relationship with Jesus. That's what we're about. And I hope that that's what your home is filled with. And as a church, might I add, all these 3 points, and we'll get on to the fourth in a second, we're going to make sure that as we map out volunteer roles, as we map out programming, as we share resources, that God's at the center, okay? We're going to make sure that, that we own our responsibility to lead and guide kids towards Jesus, and we're going to value each and every child. Kids are so, so precious. And then let's move on to verse 5. It says this, okay? Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. Okay, blessed. It's not like shame on you. It's not, poof, you got your hands full, like, sucker. No, blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. So there is a rich blessing that we have the opportunity to just experience as parents, in the middle of the crazy, or as grandparents. Probably grandparents feel that a little bit more, the blessing of grandkids. But there's a blessing that comes with that. And there's a lot of different things that you can build in life. You can build companies, you can build teams, you can build a physical home. But there's not many more things more noble and beautiful than building a home where God's first, and kids are valued, and you own your place, and you receive the blessing of kids. So what makes a thriving home? It's this, enjoying the blessing that children bring. And I'm kind of thinking about that in two different parts, both the blessing of the way that kids are right now, and then also the blessing of who they become. Because at the end of the day, we trust that as we invest, as we do our part, and God does his, fruit will come. And that blessing will come as we faithfully sow. Just like that song said, even when I don't feel it, you're working. We trust that the blessing will come. So, as a church, our aim is that every child would develop a faith of their own. And kind of like how I hinted at how the faith development of a child or teen is not something that's an extracurricular that you can pass off and delegate. As a church, we want to partner with you, okay? As parents, we want to partner with you. And so we've been using curriculum from a provider called Orange, but it's deeper than just like they give us some activities and we roll them out. This is, I'll show an image here that kind of represents two different circles to help explain this. So over here we have a yellow circle that's church, and that's the church is the light of the world. Like that's the bride of Christ. That's who we are. That's a beautiful thing. But then we have this circle over here, the home. Okay, and the home is the best place to just provide a loving circle around a child. But what we're trying to do is not just say, hey, drop off your kid over here in church, and we will raise them to love and follow Jesus. And we're not just going to leave you on your own as parents and say, like, figure it out. There's a beautiful overlap in the middle, okay? Where, yellow and red make orange. And we talk about this idea of, like, think orange, and we're an orange church. And what that means is we want to come alongside you and assist you as parents to have your kids love and follow Jesus. And we're going to celebrate that in a dedication in a little bit and hear kind of someone's story. I can't wait for this. To just talk about how it is that the church and the home come together in a beautiful way. So, guys, where does this leave us? Psalm 127, verse 1. Unless the Lord builds your home, okay, your family, those who build it labor in vain. So, what's your part? Okay, what's your part? I guess it's a bunch of different things, kind of like I outlined. But it starts with God does his part, okay? He's going to build your home. He's taking care of you. He's giving you the breath that that you have. He created you. He made you, all that. But then we respond in these four different ways, okay? We respond through valuing our kids, through inviting God just into the center of our home. We take ownership and responsibility, and we just receive that blessing. So, what's the bad news out of all this? Okay, you actually can't be a perfect parent. That's bad news, right? Some of you, you're trying hard. You want to be a perfect parent. So why don't you turn to someone beside you and say, you can't be a perfect parent. Shocker, hey? Shocker. You've always wanted to say that. But, wouldn't it be great if you were? No. The good news is this. You can be a parent who trusts God and does their part, okay? That's something you can do. And that's really freeing to know, it's not my place to control every single factor. That's a weight that you were never meant to carry. But you can be a parent who trusts God and does their part. So to wrap up, I just want to leave you with this, okay? We don't bear the weight of parenting alone, okay? God is with us, and he gives to his beloved sleep as we trust him. And some of you, when you think about the parenting years that are behind you, you have regrets, and you wish, I wish I would have done this differently, I wish this would have happened, and you kind of live with some of the guilt, maybe shame. And there's a few different pieces to that. We also want to acknowledge that kids also have a place. They have a relationship with God, whether distant or close, that's on them at some point. And Deuteronomy 5:16 says this, honor your father and mother as the Lord commanded you, that your days may be long and that it may go well with you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Kids have a place to follow Jesus, and this is one of their primary ways. Just honor father and mother. So kids have an opportunity and a role. And then at the end of the day, we realize that we do our best. We do our part. We're intentional, make the most of the opportunities that we have, and then we leave it in God's hands. He loves our kids more than we do. Maybe you have a child that's wayward, and it's a knot in your stomach that you just wish, and you're praying for them. That's your part. Keep praying for them, love them, care for them. Maybe there's something in your past that's been really hard to deal with. You don't have to carry that weight and responsibility alone. God loves you. He cares for you. He's a good father. So we trust God with our lives, okay? We trust God with our lives and our homes, that we give it to him. It's his. We're just going to keep going to him for everything that we need. And we're going to take responsibility and love God and serve him and live with everything that we can. We're going to walk that line. Sound good? We're going to do that together. Hey, in a second, we're going to have the opportunity to hear about one couple in our church. They're actually youth leaders and have been for, I think they started in as youth leaders 6 or 7 years ago, and then they were away for a time and they're back. So just really, really special. But you'll get to hear their story of their parenting journey through marriage. And I can't wait for this. We were able to film this week, and you're gonna love what comes out of this. But I want you to listen to hear them share the part that they had and God's part in their story and the beautiful overlap of both. And then we're going to dedicate their child right after. Okay, so let's go to that video now.
So Jake and I have been married, we will be married 7 years in October, and we started off our marriage knowing that I have a lung disease called cystic fibrosis, and that it would potentially stop us from having children, or at least make it difficult. So we went into marriage knowing right away that we needed to do fertility investigation and start trying to have a family. And so that's where we started. From there, we started our lives together. Jake worked out of town during the week, and so our first year of marriage was a little tough getting to know each other, that sort of thing. And then the second year of marriage, we decided that we really were going to try to expand our family. We actually moved to Stratford for 5 years, 4.5, 5 years, and it was there that we started that. And we ended up with results of unexplained infertility, which is actually really common, but really frustrating because there were no answers as to why we couldn't get pregnant. Our family was all getting pregnant around us. We called it the Dunn baby boom. If anyone knows the Dunns, a lot of us attend Pathway, you'll know that there are a lot of little mini Dunns running around. So that was beautiful and exciting, but also really hard and created a lot of grief for us as we waited for our miracle baby, and nothing happened. So I think it was year 4 that we decided to really give it to God, and all along we had decided like there was no recipe for how we wanted a baby. If we were going to adopt, if we were going to foster, if we were going to conceive through fertility or naturally, whichever we were happy with. So
yeah, it was tough, quite honestly. There were moments where it was like, why us? We're serving, and not to say like, oh well, we're checking off all the boxes, we're being good little Christians, why can't you just give us what we want, which was a child? And looking back, like the testimony that we have, and it's that cliche Christian lingo of like, there is no testimony without a test, and this was definitely a test, because there were moments myself personally where I'm like, what's the point? But that's the selfish me of like, you're not giving me what I want, so I'm walking away from you. But I did have those battles with God where it's like, come on man, like really, like, and again, I love my family, but it's like everyone's having babies, twins, everything, and it's just like, really, not us? Like, what do we got to do?
I just want one.
The moments we thought we were pregnant, and it was like, oh, I think this is it. Nope, negative. And then, oh, somebody's pregnant. It's like, oh, great, not us, but whatever. That was my emotion, the fight, the battle with God. But like you said, 4 years in, 5 years in, we just eventually were like, we'll give it to you, God. Whatever you, if we're going to be aunts and uncles for the rest of our life, we will, and we'll be the best we can be. So
yeah.
But
and
now
I
we
think
can't,
like,
so we're parents, so.
Here we are. I think God, always gave us something to steady us so that we could stay on that journey and we could hold on and we could not give up hope. And a big part of that, like you said, was surrounding ourselves with people, specifically some mentors we met in Stratford. They were totally out of the box of what we would have envisioned our mentors being. They were ex-Mennonites. They lived on a farm. They were just this absolutely lovely couple, and to this day are 2 of our best friends. And they had experienced so much grief and so much loss in their lives, and yet their home, their family, their lives, their faith, it was all to honor Jesus. And they just wanted to give and pour into people, and they taught us that. And along with so many other people, we could not be here today if it weren't for our friends and our families, especially. We've referenced before that image in the Bible of Moses when he's leading the Israelites into battle, and he's standing on the mount holding his staff up, and when he would hold it up, they would win. But his arms started to get heavy, and so Aaron and Hur came and held his arms for him. And that's how we felt. There were many times where we were literally on the ground crying out to God. We didn't have the strength. Our marriage was in question. We were losing friendships and relationships because our grief was so heavy. And yet our village never let us quit. And they were the hands and feet of Jesus in that time for us. So
amidst my wrestling with God, me and him having our little battle, and of course he won, always does. But no, I had a dream. I'm not a big dreamer. I have dreams and I'm like, I don't know what that was. Like, I forgot what I dreamt about, but I had a nightmare. But this one was bizarre. So basically, Allie and I were actually walking through Selwyn Outreach Center Church. And all I remember is just coming through the doors, and I'm holding a baby in the car seat showing everybody. And we're walking, and we had a young girl with us, dark hair, taller, like maybe 5'6". No idea where she came from. But then there was a little boy in a car seat, and I said to you, like, he looks like me, curly blonde hair. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe that's something to hang on to. And his name was Keon, like Dave Keon. I'm a big Leaf fan, but I'd never name my kid Keon. Sorry, Dave. But so I actually looked it up because you said, well, maybe that means something. and it literally means God is gracious. And I was like, oh my goodness, really? Like, what the heck? So that was cool. So that's something I hung on to, and that kind of sparked my like faith journey of like, okay, this guy's legit. This guy, you know, I can't, you know, he's gonna win this battle.
So we moved back to Peterborough about a year and a half ago. COVID really made us realize that we wanted to be with our families. We were exhausted from our fertility journey, and we decided that we were just gonna move home and be awesome aunts and uncles because Oliver has 14 cousins. So there's a lot to love. And we moved home, and we just kind of said, okay, God, we give you the baby situation. We think we're done. We don't know that we can keep doing this. The fertility treatments, all that stuff, it was too much. So we just kind of gave it to God and said, unless you do a miracle, we're content. And then a former youth reached out, but she said, God gave me a word for you, and it's about the walls of Jericho. And I believe that you're supposed to walk in victory this year. Just like they did for the walls of Jericho, and that your walls are going to become tumbling down. That night, Jake was, I think, at hockey or something, and I was bawling my eyes out, and I actually walked around our house in tears declaring that this was our year of victory and that there was a baby coming. And then like a month later, it was my birthday, and my sister Kaylee, who's usually quite timid and isn't one to speak up, Jake's parents were there for dinner as well. It was my family and Jake's family, and she just stood up and she said, that's it, get to the couch. We need to anoint you with oil. We're going to pray. This is going to be your baby year. And we're like, okay. So we all gathered around.
But I think honestly, you can say you and I were like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah,
like,
because
you can pray, but like that was kind of what our thought was.
Yeah. And so as much as like they always talk about in the fertility community how hope is a very hard word, because hope is so exciting, but it's terrifying because when it doesn't work out, it's devastating. And so you're always scared to hope. But it felt like a flame was reignited a little bit, and so we moved forward in hope. And 2 weeks later, we were at that very same dinner table at my parents', and a friend, an old family friend from Peterborough, called and uttered the words I never thought we'd hear. And she literally said, do you want a baby? And we're not on any list. We were not, through adoption or fostering, but there was a family friend connection, and she knew of a woman who was a hard drug user and wanted us to know that up front, that the baby would be born addicted, and not just like little things, like some really heavy stuff. And they thought it was a girl, and they actually thought the baby was biracial. There was a lot of factors. We really didn't have any information. We didn't even know the due date. She wasn't properly monitored, but was like, are you interested? And like, yes. And we met the birth mother, and she came running up to us, gave us a big hug, introduced herself, and she said, do you want to feel your baby? And it was like that. From the moment she met us, she honored us so deeply to say, this is your baby, and I'm literally just carrying it. And so I was able to go to a lot of appointments with her from then on, and a lot of the times we would just sit at home and be like, is this really happening?
Yeah,
like
it almost still doesn't feel real. Like, quite honestly. Setting
up a nursery, like, and I think too, because we had so many disappointments that we were like, are we being stupid? Like, is this ridiculous? And even when we announced it, and half the reason we announced it was because our village had supported us to this point, that we wanted them to be with us and pray. But two, if it didn't work out, we knew we needed them in the aftermath as well.
And then I had another dream. I don't even remember what the dream was, but all it was a little boy, and his name was Oliver. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. And that's when we were told, as we could talk about it more, when we knew we were getting Oliver as an adoption, or a baby, we thought it was a girl. This whole time we thought it was a girl, but I had a dream of a boy named Oliver. So I'm like, okay, we're obviously having a second child at some point that's going to be a boy, because we have to name him Oliver. It's better than Keon. So it was basically, I hung on to that one. I'm like, okay, sorry, you can't name him. I got the name, it's Oliver. And if it's a girl, his name's Oliver.
Fast forward to getting woken up in the middle of the night that she's in labor, and God is so sovereign and so faithful, because he woke us up literally, like, we didn't have our phones on or anything, woke us up, we saw the message, we got there. By the time Jake dropped me off at the hospital doors and went to park, when he came back up, I was already in the C-section. And I was the first person to hold Oliver. And then we got to go to a room with him right away. And, you know, when my parents walked in, I was doing skin to skin in the bed with Oliver. Jake was beside me, and my mom said it was like you had just had the baby. Like, God was so faithful to let us experience every piece of it, that, you know, I got to hold him first, that we got to be with him first, that he was ours from the beginning. And we had been prepped by the social worker and by the hospital staff that he would be taken immediately, that he'd be put in the NICU, that he'd be put on morphine, that we'd be in for a long road, probably a few weeks in the hospital. And I think after like 10 hours had passed or something, we're like, why are they not taking him? And we couldn't understand it.
Yeah, they had to keep doing some Finnegan's test or whatever. And if you scored high, they knew, okay, he's addicted. And I think they said if he got 8 scores 3 in a row, that's when they had to send him. And he never got over a 3. So we know why, but they were just like, yeah, no, he's like more healthy than the average baby.
Yeah.
So again, with the adoption process, after a mom saying, oh, you know, you want my baby, here you go, type thing. Obviously you knew there was lawyers involved. She didn't want CAS involved at all. And so long story short, basically this guy contacted us and said, yep, this sounds, I've done this case once with a similar situation, but just it was with a family member. Didn't want the child, but anyways, he said, yeah, all you need to do is find a lawyer for the mom. You will have to pay that fee, but you just sign off that you are the legal guardian, you're the parent, mom is waiving all her rights, because she knows she can't care for the baby. Instead of $20,000, $30,000, it cost us $2,000 in total for this whole process. So that in itself was bizarre, like how financially we didn't even have to worry about it. And then we had some friends in Pathway actually graciously donated us an excessive amount of money. That was totally unnecessary, but they firmly believe that you might be able to touch on that. They
felt that God had asked them to put this money away a while ago and to build on it, and they didn't know what it was for, but both of them had such a heart for adoption, although that was not in their plan. And so when they heard our story, they said that they went home that night and just looked at each other and they're like, that's what the money's for. And so they
thank you.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah,
like that
it covered everything and more, and took all the stress, and again was just a reassurance of the doubt that, you know, no, this is happening, because God doesn't just, like, you know, they say God opens the door. He swung the doors open. It was so evident.
I definitely got hit by those doors. Like, it was just crazy.
Still have a little bit of whiplash.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Pathway Church for you. And honestly, the generosity and the village that we have here in Stratford.
A reminder that who you surround yourself with is so important. And two, I think, to touch on the birth mom again, when she decided not to abort the baby, that comes back to our friend Stephanie, who arranged all of this. She fostered the birth mom as a teen, and she took her to church, and she actually accepted Jesus with her and stuff. And she said to us, she said, you know, I don't believe in God anymore, or maybe I do, I don't know, but Stephanie taught me that this is what God would want. And so to see 15 years later that truly the seeds you sow into children, you know, flourish one day, and you reap those things. And so we're just so grateful that she was poured into. So there is no doubt in anyone's mind that God did this. And so when people come to us asking for advice or whatever, the only thing we can tell them is stay the course and let God do the rest. And you know, for almost 7 years we didn't know what that looked like. And when people would say, oh, it'll all be worth it, you know, hang on, I wanted to punch them in the face. But now I'm like, frick, they were right. Like, they were right. Like, here we are, and it's so worth it. And I think ultimately it just comes down to having people around you who are going to support you, and just trusting God with the vision, as hard as that can be.